Hi, everyone. My name is Rehmat Kharal. I am the VP of Enablement at Big Panda, and today I'm here to talk to you about how to get a seat at the table. I skipped 2 grades in high school, not because I'm some genius, but because I had a plan. One day, I was going to be a law professor at Oxford University in London. Not only was I going to be one of Oxford's youngest students, but they were going to love me so much that upon graduation, they would make me a professor. I was just 12 years old and had so many plans and ideas. I saw everything around me as inspiration. I had the drive, the work ethic, the passion to do something great with my life. So I worked hard, very hard, and managed to skip 2 grades. Believe it or not, I wasn't a bookworm. My drive, passion, and hard work was also what led me to play a number of sports. I loved the adrenaline rush I felt as I ran down the soccer field, skated down the ice, or swam laps at the local high school pool. I wanted it all: the best job, the best grades, the coolest friends, to be the best in everything I did. My father was my inspiration, an immigrant from India who lost his father when he was just 3 years old. He would get a daily allowance that he was supposed to use for transportation to and from school. But instead, he saved those rupees until he had enough money to get him a ticket to America, his ticket to the American dream. He was 17, the first member of his family to leave India. His drive, perseverance, hard work got him a job at IBM. Yes, my father's first job in America at the age of 17 was at IBM. At night, he went to community college and learned how to program. And during the day, he would take those very skills and apply them to his work. 2 years after he arrived in America, he had sponsored 2 of his brothers, he had bought an apartment, and he had met the love of his life, my mom. She's a powerful woman, but we're going to talk about her just a little bit later. The vision he saw as a child had become a reality because of his determination, his support system, and never losing the passion he had for life. Witnessing your parents enjoy every part of their life, grateful for the small and large blessings they were gifted with, instills within your own heart that passion, love, and drive and motivation that had me at the age of 12 planning for how I was going to live out my dreams. I had earned my master's by the time I was 20 and was the first one from my graduating class to be hired with my first real job. My hiring manager was a man. The company was an electronics manufacturing company. And guess what? My master's was not in a technical specialty, but he took a chance on me, something I would never forget. Well, that was the launch of my professional career. A few years later, I met the love of my life. We got married and moved to Silicon Valley, the land of opportunity. I had to start all over again. I was now living in the tech capital of the world, surrounded by some of the brightest people. I didn't know where to start. I looked at job postings and everyone was hiring, guess what? Hardware and software engineers or project managers or senior directors of such and such. My background was in sales training, product messaging, building campaigns, and I only had a few years of experience at a Canadian tech company that no one had heard of. It was time to create a new plan. Send out as many resumes as possible. I would tell myself, once you get in front of people, you're going to sell them. But the problem was, no one was calling me back. It was time for plan B. Call companies yourself, introduce yourself, ask to speak with the hiring manager. Well, that didn't get me very far until one day I dropped my husband off to work and was driving around Palo Alto when I noticed a company that had several small buildings surrounding the firm that my husband worked at. I picked up the phone and I called them. I asked the receptionist to speak with a hiring manager, not realizing she was actually going to patch me through. Hi, my name's Rehmat Kharal. And I went on for about 3 minutes about myself and then finally asked, are you hiring? The answer I got was, yes, I'm looking for commercial real estate agents. Needless to say, I was happy that they were hiring, but at no stretch of the imagination am I a commercial real estate agent. But he still asked me to come in. So I met with him and said no to his original job offer to become an agent because that's not what I wanted. Instead, I asked him a few questions. How long does it take your new agents to close their first deal? Who are your top agents? How long is your sales cycle? We had a great conversation. My curiosity and knowing what I wanted and didn't want landed me a job that there was no posting for. I worked at that commercial real estate company for 2 years as their sales trainer and analyst. And that was the first time I saw that table, the long mahogany table that sat in the conference room that all the execs would sit around. I knew that I wanted a seat at that table. I loved that job. Did you know that in 2020, only 7.4 of Fortune 500 companies had female CEOs? Let's take a look at how far we've come. Khadija bint Khuwailid, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a successful woman in 620 CE who had inherited her father's business and is still one of the most successful women in history today. That was over 1,400 years ago. She sat at the head of that table. In 1776, Abigail Adams made a plea to her husband, the President of the United States, to remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion, and we will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice and no representation. A truly powerful woman. Ain't I a Woman? In 1851, Sojourner Truth, former slave turned activist, delivered the Ain't I a Woman speech at the Women's Rights Conference in Akron, Ohio. Ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. Ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it and bear the lash as well. Ain't I a woman? In 1969, Shirley Chisholm became the first African-American congresswoman and was quoted saying, if they don't give you a seat at the table, then bring a folding chair. Let's think about that for a second. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. That's brilliant. Find your own way to be seated at that table. I just love that. In 2021, we women are leaving $78.6 billion annually on that table. Today, we still fight for wage equality. There have been so many powerful women who came before us and paved the way for women to have a seat at the table. But unfortunately, there are still many obstacles to overcome, and those obstacles come in different forms. 2 years into my career, I found out that I was pregnant. I had stayed at home for 13 years and got to watch my 3 beautiful daughters grow up. Sometimes we think we need to make a choice between being a mom or having a career. But I don't live by that philosophy. During my time with my children, I had started writing for various parenting publications, became a keynote speaker specializing in parenting and communications, and had started my own consulting startup. It's all about balance. I constantly networked, whether I was speaking or attending events, and I collected and handed out cards. I always followed up. My consulting gigs were marketed directly to decision makers. I started at the very top. I made it my mission to get in front of the highest title possible. I relied on my subject matter expertise, my contacts, and sheer perseverance to get in front of the right people. I had nothing to lose. At home, I was dealing with the most unreasonable customers. They did not take no for an answer. I was in constant negotiations and had to work in a very fast-paced environment, and I had no previous experience. Being a mother taught me the skills that I needed to get a seat at the table. One of the contacts I made during my networking was the second in line CEO of the largest tech company, one of the largest tech companies in the world. I befriended him. So how do you befriend someone like that? People that are that accomplished are used to being around people that are praising them and taking everything that they say as gold. One of the many lessons I learned raising my kids was to be a very active, patient listener, and to always be very honest with them. And I took this very approach to befriending someone who would become a lifelong mentor. We would discuss ideas and projects that he was working on. I listened, I asked thought-provoking questions, and then not that he asked me for it, but I always gave him my honest opinion, feedback, and thoughts. He appreciated my honesty, my perspective. He almost instantly became a friend and a mentor to me and introduced me to the VP of such and such at a very large tech company. I met this VP and boy, oh boy, was I blown away. He was an intelligent and articulate man. Honestly, he actually reminded me of my dad. He never interviewed me. Instead, we had a conversation. He looked at me and he handed me a box. I was a bit confused. He asked me to go home and learn about this box and meet with him and a few others the following week. Well, I did my homework and gave the presentation of my life. I was hired on the spot. So what was my approach to that box? Well, I had become a great storyteller, being a mom and all. And I presented a story about that box. Guess what? That box was a router. The router had a lot of friends. I had incorporated many products that this company sold into my pitch. That had never been done before. I found myself constantly thinking outside of the box, asking for and incorporating feedback into my work, resonating with the audience, knowing the product, connecting business and technical dots for customers. That was my approach. This approach got me to present in front of multi-million-dollar accounts. I was meeting with heads of states, royalty, government officials, and helping close huge deals. It's so important to get in front of the right people, be heard, and let your work advocate for itself. One day, the CEO happened to be in one of these customer meetings. He personally thanked me for my work and invited me to present to the entire ELT at this ginormous tech company. I was blown away. To prepare for this presentation, I rehearsed, and rehearsed. Someone came by and gave me a list of attendees. This was going to be a private event for the ELT only, a dinner reception, a ribbon cutting for this new center that was being named after the CEO. I didn't look at that list. I didn't even glance at it. Well, you might be thinking, oh my God, she's crazy. But my secret is to always put your best foot forward. It doesn't matter if you're presenting to the Queen or to a Girl Scout. That list didn't matter. What mattered was my preparation on the subject matter, creating a relatable story. That's what the ELT would remember. That night, I was promoted by the CEO. I had only been with this company a few months. So remember that VP I told you that hired me into this great company? Well, he was my champion. After my first customer presentation, which was to an insurance giant, and I had taken on the persona of their lead actor in their commercials. Yes, that's the way I pitch. My VP came up to me and said, "Kid, you're going to do great things here." He believed in me. He encouraged me to try new approaches to storytelling and learn new technologies to make my presentations even stronger. In fact, one of those government officials that I was privileged to present to was now VP of the United States, Kamala Harris. When my champion introduced me, he said, "Kamala, meet Rehmat. She is fantastic, but please don't steal her from me." Now that's a champion. He really believed in me. He made me believe even more in myself. Who's your champion? Are you building champions? What outside of the box things are you doing to make yourself unique? Let's fast forward many years. I've held various positions at amazing large and small tech companies, and I've never held the same position for too long. I kept one foot on the ground and the other one poised to take a step up on that corporate ladder. But it wasn't easy. I had some amazing leaders and some that presented themselves as, well, obstacles, making it very, very hard for me to achieve my goals, blocking me from getting in front of the right people, presenting my ideas as their own, questioning why I wanted to be promoted. Hey, don't you have kids? Are you sure you got your priorities right? Believe me, it was hard. Women have to help each other carve paths to success. Which woman have you taken a chance on? Whose champion are you? We need to be each other's cheerleaders, advocates, and voices. We need to help each other secure their spot at the table. My mother was my backbone, a strong woman who always expressed her opinions and encouraged me to take everything in stride. When I needed someone to lean on, I leaned on her. When I needed advice on business, parenting, or life in general, she provided with me that guidance and clarity. I like to think of her as my original champion and the strongest woman I know. Communication, active listening, the ability to be a fast learner, thinker, and pivoting tasks and roles, thinking outside the box, networking, being bold, honest, and taking everything in stride is how I got my seat at the table 6.5 years after returning to work. We all have that 12-year-old voice in our head, the one that's full of ideas and spirit. Never ignore that voice. Listen to it, embrace it, become it. Now, I never became a law professor at Oxford University, but I did become the VP of enablement at an amazing tech company in the tech capital of the world after 6.5 years coming back to work after taking a 13-year break. If I can get a seat at the table, so can you. Thank you.